What do you guys think of that?
An external HR department.
Small company, not large. In the article, it says something about, what, like sexual harassment lawsuits or whatever. They don't know, they're not gonna deal with any of that stuff, but your basic, benefits, 401k, everything like that, the first day you will sign up. And they're the technology behind that. So now here's an interesting part. So, we have $20 million in revenue in January. Okay. It raised $500 million to put the company at a $4.5 billion valuation for a company that sold $20 million worth. So what are the venture capital people thinking? What they're not thinking? Because right now, see, no venture funding. Oh, I like big numbers like this. And then, what's the venture funding? 583?
0.6.
Don't forget the 0.6, right? So this is the venture. This is the market value. Where's the rest of that money?
Equity, debt,
Say it again?
is complete equity and the debt. Debt.
Not necessarily debt, but we're just dealing with the equity side right now. So it's the owners of the company that have the rest of it. Pretty substantial, right?
Yeah.
Usually when a company has that valuation, usually you see a lot more of venture funding.
That means the company is unlevered company.
Right, well, yeah, but look at the valuation though. Because it's not, there's no debt to it, right? But if you have a company with $20 million of sales, which is getting valued at $4.5 billion right now. Sound risky to you?
No.
Kind of, but there's no debt, right?
No debt.
But
But no,
they're expecting a lot of good things to happen, aren't they?
But I didn't.
Scaling, right? Once you get this system in place, once you get it built, you just need to sell it, right? So it's built. So I'm interested to see what happens over the next couple of years if this company makes it. So if I'm investing with a valuation of $4.5 billion, I think this company is going to be worth more than that, don't I? We'll see. But to show you how outlandish the valuations can get, this is an example. Does the product make sense? I think it makes sense. If it works, fine, right?
What is this? Insurance company?
HR.
HR.
So like your benefits, your 401k, things like that, instead of having a person you go to for a smaller company, they have all their stuff online. So you can enter all your information and control it that way. The company, the smaller company, doesn't have to bring that, in-house. Plus, they negotiate, the bigger they get, the better kind of rates they'll be able to negotiate too with companies like health insurance companies and things like that too.
That's the company I used to work for, like ATS. They're like worldwide, and parts for like their maintenance company, and they outsource it. So companies gotta pay their benefits to the employees. So they bring their own crew, their own manager, and then we get a bunch of discounts with Ranger or MaxiCar. It's buying power.
Yeah, once you get up to a certain size, then maybe your firm does bring in a. But there's a lot of companies that stay under 1,000 employees, aren't there, out there? You might like to have some of this. Why? If your HR person quits, guess what? Right? You're in trouble, so. I just thought I'd bring that up, interested or not, but.
Even for employment, probably.
Huh?
How even for employment, like
Mm-hmm.
candidates.
Mm-hmm. So that guy was, he was in a failed venture, went into another venture, and now he's running this one. Not bad. As long as it makes it, right? What's the chances of him making it? What do you think?
There's
No?
a need for it.
Yeah.
There's a need, right?
I don't know, but a lot of small companies, they don't even offer 401k.
Right.
A lot of them, they don't. And the health insurance, they don't. I don't know what does he mean, but
If
a
this could
small
make it,
company for
if
him,
this could make it cheaper,
Correct, if you get us.
but it's still, they not, don't, you still have to fund the 401k. Small employers,
Right.
they don't wanna do it.
no, but you could still offer it to him, but you wouldn't match anything.
Yeah, but like the administration of the funds, it costs money too.
Right.
For the
Mhm.
employers. So I work for smaller and none of them, like, it's rarely what they offer,
Mhm.
something like, so I don't know. And the
Yeah,
big
they would get-
company, they can afford it.
The thing, if they can get scalable, large enough, they can get better 401k administration
Maybe
rates
now with
too.
Obama more, then you need to offer it,
You
like
need to.
over,
That's
like
probably what
it's
this is trying
25
to,
employees, you have to offer health insurance, so maybe,
this is kind of tackling that market. I think.
yeah, that's probably, yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I don't know, 4.5
Yeah, it's still
billion.
kind of, the valuation is, yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, it's crazy.
I would invest in it at this point, absolutely
It doesn't seem like it's a new idea. I work at a small company,
not. Mhm.
and among other things, I do all that stuff. And so when they call, I'm like, well, I'm not interested in you replacing me, so, you know.
But yeah,
But,
Why would they call you, yeah,
I mean, because I do the
right.
bookkeeping and the HR and the computer stuff. And so,
Right.
but so I've had several sales. It's not a new idea, but I don't know why this one is so,
Mhm.
what
All the
they
big
have.
guys, ADP and everybody's offering that now. They
The
want
automatic check, yeah, the checks, yes.
no, but
Oh,
when you
and all
say
these
HR, right?
And the
Oh,
services
yeah,
stuff.
that ADP wants your HR all the way through payroll.
Right.
But I wonder what, you know, with their small business, it's hard to see if they could afford it, or if ADP would even be interested in them.
Mm.
But that's probably the market that he's trying to get is, you know, but it's still kind of, it's a tough market.
Mm.
Not the only one out there, but, you know.
Yeah, usually the small employers, they have like you, they have one employee who does everything.
Right.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah,
I say everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they call you that.
you're
Well,
an HR and
well,
company.
they would fire me, yeah, exactly, no, thank you. No, but that's, I mean, but when you're a growing company, you know, and you're 5 to 10 employees, 15 employees, 20 employees, you know, you might take a crack at this and say, okay,
Mm.
do it. Because we can't find anybody that really wants to do it, or, you know, for that little amount or whatever, so. Mhm. So that's probably, you know, we'll see. Mhm. That's awesome that they're calling you to.
Because when you say evaluation, like you said Uber or whatever was worth 50
50
billion.
billion, yeah.
I mean, I thought Uber was like a cab service or I don't know.
It is, but it's scalable,
At
that's the
50
thing.
billion, I mean,
That's the thing, it's scalable, right? So you go into foreign countries and they have Uber.
so this, who does the valuation when the article says it's valued at or?
That's whoever put in that $500 million, that puts it at 4.5 billion. So that tells you that they think it's worth more. Basically, in order to get something valued, it's whatever you can sell it for, or what somebody will give you for, right? So if that person gave you $500 million, that's 4.5, right? What kind of percentage are they taking of that company then? Mhm. Not that much still, a decent amount, over 10%, right? There's also a sucker born every minute, that was a crime there, right? Mm-hmm. But somebody's interested, right?
Will Rogers or something like that? Or he said that, I mean, he did that.
Mhm. And everybody wants to make it work, including the company. Employees want to make it work. The CEO wants to make it work, right? Because they can really get paid. No, the thing with Uber is its scalability throughout everywhere. And what they're judging now, the taxi cab medallion, the ones you see on the cars, those used to be worth quite a bit of money. You can't even sell those for anything anymore. Mhm. The only thing is, there could be creepy guys driving them, which for a single lady might not be a good idea to take with her, right? But then there could be a creepy guy in a cab too, right? Give and take, right?
Well, they're offering now, like even helicopter, people that are wealthy, Uber is.
Really?
I think even private jets too. If you're a billionaire.
Yeah. Could you land on my house? How the neighbors with it? Oh, they're fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good. They'll be fine. Well, plus two with Uber, I mean, you can cover, you know, you have your phone, right? That's the thing. They know where you're at. Trying to call a cab company, you know?
Thank you.
It's also quite popular with college age to make some more money too. How much work? Leases. Why do people lease things?
To take the tax benefit.
Hmm?
It's a tax benefit
Like what? What kind of tax benefit you get for your leasing?
You can write off the property taxes if that's written up in your lease.
Makes sense.
I don't own it.
But in the lease, they can give you the rights.
No, then it's not the lease, then it's for accounting, it's, just,
If
That's what you're
you
saying?
have a lease, what are you gonna see on the income statement?
it's lease expense,
Are you gonna see a thing on your balance sheet?
not
No.
They might disclose it in the footnotes, to say how much leasing, or how much lease items they have, and give a valuation on it. But what you're basically doing is you're leasing because, first of all, you have to put up the capital, right? Like a car lease, if they say zero down, and $399 a month, well, guess what? I don't have to put any money down, I get a car for $399 a month. Okay, if I were to buy the car, I'd put $5,000, and then I'd pay $450 a month. Right? Now, there's gonna be terms with that lease, maintenance and things like that, right? So if I lease, you'd see a line item called lease expense, right? And it wouldn't be on your balance sheet. Now, if I buy, what do I see if I buy? Well, I see an asset on the balance sheet, right? What else do I see?
Depreciation expense.
Hmm?
Depreciation expense.
Mm-hmm, because I own it, right?
Liability?
Possible liability based upon that. We don't know how they fund it, could be part of a bond, right? Or internally. Mhm. So what they're doing is when you lease, you want to avoid that on your balance sheet. Makes your balance sheet look better. Is that kind of sneaky? So they have to disclose it in the footnotes. Who reads the footnotes? Right? Who looks at the balance sheet? A lot more people go, oh, balance sheet, okay, okay. So if you do see a lease expense on your income statement, what should you do? You should figure out what it is in your disclosure. Okay. And then what do I see possibly on the income statement? I see interest expense, right? Possibly. So lease expense, interest expense, and liability. Not worried about the interest expense. Remember, if it's a bond, what can happen with a bond? Interest is what? Tax deductible, right? So if they finance that lease with a bond, they get interest deduction for that. They'll definitely get interest deduction if you do the bond to buy the asset. Why wouldn't you want to buy the asset as a company? What would be the problem with that?
First of all, the money you gotta put down.
Mm-hmm. So larger companies might try to finagle this to hide a little something in liability. Younger companies, you have cash. Right. How much is a copier machine? A decent one. What, 10 grand? 15 grand? You want to pay a couple $100 a month, or do you want to buy that copy machine? And sometimes that lease comes with service too.
Yeah. That's what the liability.
Well, even better though. Why? That gets it serviced. Great. So smaller companies use leases because they just don't have the capital. The less upfront payment, the more likely they are to lease. I remember 20 years ago, car leases used to be real cheap, right? You'd see a lot of $199, $299, right? With no down payment. Now you see $299, $399, and then that little writing on the bottom of the screen that says what? With a $3,500 down payment. Well, what happened? After the lease, what's going to happen is there's going to be a residual value, right? Which the lessor has calculated. He calculates this. If the residual value is less than the market value, I'm okay. That means I could turn around and sell it today and I'll still make money, right? I was just hoping with the residual value that I'd break even with market value of the item. What happens if it's a lot less than the residual value? You have a loss, right? Put a big one. So the automotive companies, before 2007, 2008, a lot of them took huge write-downs. We're talking $3 to $4 billion worth of write-downs. Because that residual value that they put on that car wasn't even close to what the market value of that car was. So a lot of your, what is it, Chrysler Capital now, I think Ford Motor Credit is still around, they don't like to write leases. Why? Because they lost a lot of money. So as a lessor, here's my risk. I need my residual value to be what? Less than market value. Michael. And how do you think I calculate that? So I got a copier. How would I calculate that? Or a car?
Is it the difference between the principal and the monthly payment, the periodic payments?
Mm-hmm.
I think they factor as well depreciation.
Because they usually say, well, a car depreciates, what, 30% you got off the lot, right? A new car? Mm-hmm. So I calculated that by, if you want to lower your residual value, you make what? The people pay more. The payments are higher. Why are payments higher on car leases now? Because they took huge losses, that's why. Okay. Also, 2 years from now, what's going to happen? What's the car industry going to look like? What's that car going to be worth?
Depends.
Exactly. Can I take a look at what a 2-year-old car is selling for now? Is that at least 2 years ago? Yeah. I have to make an approximation too, right? It's better to make the payments higher, it doesn't make the payments lower, because that'll make my residual value worth less. the lower I can make the residual value, the better it is for me. Plus, if you look at most leases, how long are they?
A year, 2 years?
3 years?
3 to 2, right? Why? They can't tell what's gonna happen in 2 to 3 years. You sure as heck can't tell what's gonna happen in 4 to 5 years, right? So what's gonna happen to the ownership? Who has the ownership in the lease? The lessor is the person that leased it. The leasing is the person that leased it. Who has ownership?
Lessor.
An apartment. Who has the ownership? Apartment's kind of like a lease, right?
Owner.
The owner. Person that leased it to, lessor. You should never see that on your balance sheet, right? Okay. What does the apartment holder do? What does the apartment owner do at the end of your lease if you leave? Well, first you're going to have to pay a what?
Security deposit.
Why?
In case anything's damaged.
In case I just party like crazy in that apartment, right? Mm-hmm. And what are they going to do? Fix it up. Mm-hmm. If I do nothing, and the apartment's okay, hopefully I'll get that back. Sometimes there's security part with automotive leases, most of the time there's not. But there's also what with cars? Mileage?
And they're banking in that.
Mhm.
Do they charge you when you go past the mileage?
Absolutely.
They charge you. So there's like a credit card.
That's another thing in small figures, that they put like 12,000 miles per year. Sales type lease. Lessor is the manufacturer, primary dealer of the asset. Okay? If I'm General Motors and I'm going to lease you a General Motors car, that's a sales type lease. A direct lease, lessor is not the manufacturer. Okay? GE Capital, which is kind of sort of going away. Why did GE Capital lease a lot of things? Things that they didn't make.
Because they feel like the asset. I can still pay the asset.
GE Capital had a what, AAA credit rating, so they can borrow cheaper than anybody.
That's true.
If I can borrow cheaper than you, I can still give you a decent interest rate and make that spread, right? So that's what they would do in a direct lease. If I can borrow and buy that asset for $50,000 and pay 2% on that loan, where you're going to pay 5%, that means I make 3%. That's like a banker. What does the company have to have, though? Good credit. Company loses a good credit rating, their borrowing expense goes up, that pulls up the whole business. Lease back. Firm already owns an asset, they would prefer to lease. Kmart's in the process of doing some of that. You actually own the store, but you sell it to a real estate company, and then you lease it back from that real estate company. What's the advantage in that? Oh, there's not very many Kmart's left, is there? But that's what they want Target to do too, because Target owns most of the properties. There was an investor that wanted Target to, Target also owns its credit card. They want Target to get rid of its credit, not get rid of its credit card, but ship it outside to somebody else. And they thought that would be a good idea if Target would lease all the stores. So sell them to somebody and then release them from that person. What's the advantage in that?
You get,
Store closes, you don't have to worry about selling the building.
True. I'm not the owner anymore. Good and bad, right?
It's just
Because if I call a plumber now, whose responsibility is it?
the owner.
Is that good or bad?
Good. As a
Sometimes you might not have as much control, right? If you own the building outright, I'm calling this, I'm taking care of this now, right? Got to get a hold of the owner. Think about an apartment situation, right? I got to get I'm in charge of the manager. Then the manager's going to decide what to do. In the meantime, I could probably had somebody on the way already, right? How does that affect your balance sheet? as target. I have this huge asset called buildings, right? Been depreciated, what do you do, 40 years, I think? 39? Okay. Is that a good asset or a bad asset to have on your balance sheet? Bunch of buildings.
Slowly depreciate.
But don't forget, they're valued at what, though? Historic cost. So some of them could be 20, 30 years old, which we know how properties change, right? I mean, if you wanted to put a target out 20 years ago in Aurora, 30 years ago in Aurora, now that property would be worth a ton more, wouldn't it? There's a lot of customers out there now, a lot of homes built around there. So you sell it, what are you getting in return? I'm getting cash. Question is, what are you going to do with the cash? Put it on the balance sheet, it's cash, but what are you going to do with it? If you reinvest it in the business, if you have something to do like that, maybe it's a good idea. So it's kind of like you taking the market value of those buildings in cash, and I no longer have to deal with it. All I have to do, I'm going to have a lease expense now. My income statement. Assets, gone. Buildings, gone.
Would they tend to do this after they had fully depreciated it?
You know, depreciation, I don't think should really figure into that decision. It's more of how much cash you need, right? And then, is it worth my time? If you're giving me this cash, what am I going to do with that cash? Because basically, I could do expand more even with more cash, right? A lot of companies do it, and a lot of companies don't. And I don't know what's right or wrong. Either way. Some people, well, here's what happens. Bankers will come to you and say, you know what, you want to be specialized in what you do. So I'm getting my sales pitch on right now. Hands are flying. What you want to do is you want to specialize in what you do. What you do is retail. You just want to do retail. Why? That's what you're good at. What you do is what you know. Why do you want to own the building? So the person goes, he's got a point, you know? I don't know anything about the building. I don't, you know. Sign up. 10 years later, I come back, guess what? You need to buy a building. Why? It's safe. You can sell it at times they're bad. It's not going to go down in value that much. So things go in cycles. It's either an investor that's in the company that's an activist, or it's an investment banker that gets the RBC and tries to do this. Does it make sense for the company? I can see either way. What companies are getting hurt right now are the companies that are attached to malls. Like your traditional indoor mall, what do they call it, anchor stores? See, I don't shop when I have to know all this stuff anyways. So like your Sears, your Macy's, the ones that are attached to the indoor stores, indoor malls, all bad. Because they're doing stuff like, you guys been to Bolingbrook, and what is it called?
Promenade.
Promenade or Promenade, yeah. Whatever for Christmas, this is the Christmas tree. Stores like that are becoming more, I guess, appealing. Or Oakbrook, which is kind of in and kind of out too, right? But traditional ones aren't doing as well, I don't know why.
Because rent is go up.
And evidently the rent's going up, it's not worth it either. Because if there were people there, I mean, people would be willing to pay a higher rent.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was talking to one of the guys that owned one of the buildings where I work. And he said the reason why they lock it in for so many years is because they get cheaper rate, like the rent. And then they, even if they go out of business, they can turn around and rent it and make money.
Somebody else, sublease, yep.
And then you, the liability is still on the owner, not on you.
Yeah, I don't know if people don't go as much to the indoor places. I don't know what's happening, if they're just not building them that much anymore, but that's kind of,
The maintenance, the upkeep for the area, the common area, that could be a problem.
that's true too. If you're not leasing those stores in the middle, that kind know my in-laws, they live by Sheboygan, Wisconsin, they have a mall there that has a couple, they have a Kohl's and they have something on the other side, a Sears. And in between, there's maybe 5 or 6 stores, and the rest are empty. And if they're not getting enough rent, guess what they're gonna get, keeps gonna be, lose customers. Leverage lease, oh, here we go, this is even more fun. We borrow money from a bank to another lender to obtain additional capital to purchase the asset using lease payments as pay interest. So this is what GE Capital was doing. This is what anybody that had a leasing arm was doing. I can borrow cheaper than you can, so that makes me advantageous to do this. Anything wrong with it? No. Where's the problem? If my credit rating goes down. My credit rating goes down, I can't borrow as cheap anymore, guess what? No more leases. Special purpose entity. Oh, this is what the banks used to use. Separate business partnership created by lessee for the sole purpose of obtaining a lease. Anytime you see any of these special purpose entities, it's usually take an eyebrow and raise it up a little bit. Why are you doing this? This is what the banks did with asset-backed securities a lot of times. And usually these special purpose entities are located out of the Cayman Islands. For vacation. The CFO has to go down to the Cayman Islands to see this. Synthetic lease, also use an SP designed to obtain specific accounting and tax treatments. Residual value, we said that's what it's supposed to be worth at the end. Hopefully the market value is greater than residual value, then I've made a good lease as a lessor, right? Ooh. Assume your business needs a new $20,000 forklift, okay? Residual value of the forklift in 4 years is $6,000. So what's the depreciation going to be on that? People.
14.
14 divided by
4.
Let's see, so we got $20 purchase, $20,000 purchase, right? What do we have, 6?
Mm-hmm.
I showed my kids, my grade school kids math in Excel. They're like, well, then why do we have to write it down? I'm like, because the teacher tells you to. Can we do it in Excel? I'm like, well, when you get older, yes, we know. So, $14,000 in how many years? 4, right? So what's that going to be? 3,500? Is it 4 years? Okay. So that's my depreciation expense for 1 year. I can spell, copy out. What else are they going to tell us? So, timeline, 20,000, negative if I purchased. Are we buying a forklift, right? Yeah. Well, lease payment 1, 2, 3, all the way through. Looks like it's a monthly lease payment, right? 48 months. Lease payments are typically made at the beginning of each period, right? Just like rent payments, usually the first, right? First of the month. In a perfect market, the cost of leasing is equivalent to the purchase price and reselling the asset. Okay? So my present value of lease payments equals the purchase price minus what the present value residual. I know the residual. What do I need to know? What rate I'm discounting it at, right? So, the risk-free interest rate is 6%. Risk-free interest rate is what banks borrow to each other at, okay? It's the best lending rate you can get. With monthly compounding, what would the monthly lease payment for a 4-year lease in a perfect capital market be? Okay. So, we can take the 20,000 minus 6,000. Where's the 1.005 coming from? This number right here.
Like the top, 6% divided by 12.
Mm-hmm. 6%? No. 6% divided by 12?
Yeah, it's over there at the top.
That would give me what?
45%.
Sure. Okay. So we have the present value of lease payments. And then what was the formula from the last slide we looked at? Purchase price, which is what?
14.
20 grand. And so equals purchase price minus what?
Present value.
Present value of residual.
That would be 14,500.
Okay, so we know it's 20 for purchase, right? We know it's going to be 6,000 residual divided by 1 plus, let's do
It's 6 divided by 12.
this, 0.06 divided by 12 to the what? 48? 48 months? 48. So the present value lease payment should be,
It's not gonna be 6%, it's gonna be 0.5% because it's monthly.
you could put the 12 in there, right? Let's see, am I right? 15,274,401? Yep. I just combined the step here. I put the 0.06 divided by 12, then 48. Okay? So that's my present value of lease payments, my equation. Questions? We need to know what? Purchase price, residual value, also what rate they're being discounted at, and then we're good. If it's an annuity formula, what's the difference between an annuity ordinary annuity or annuity due? Ordinary annuities when?
At the beginning.
End of the month. Annuity due? Beginning of the month. So they're solving for the lease payments. Okay. To the 47th, because why? Initial payment is now plus 47 months. Any other way we can calculate this? What happens if we use the payment function in Excel? Can I do it?
Is that the loan amortization schedule? The payment schedule, that's the loan amortization.
So let's see, what's the rate?
Is it 6%?
Equals 0.06 divided by 12, right?
Correct.
Oh, they don't do the dividing on some of this way, so I have to do point. 0.005. 0.06 divided by 12. How many months?
47, right?
So 48, let's see if this works. Ooh, present value. Minus 1,5,277,41, right? Future value should be at the end, or should it be 6,000?
6,000.
Should it be 6,000? Okay. Now, here's the difference. If I make this a type 1, it's annuity due, right? Does it look like it's working?
No,
Because what are they coming up with?
35701.
How about if we put like for N47?
Try that.
No,
No.
it's the fair value of 6,000. That's effective. And now change it to 48, so you go back to the 57.
Mhm. So you have to assume future value is 0. Because at the end, technically, I'm gonna owe nothing. Okay. So, I need a rate, payments, take the full payments, take 48 or whatever. Make sure you put a 1 here. What that means is that makes it an annuity due. That means the first payment is made right now. If you leave it blank or put 0, it's going to assume the ordinary annuity, which pays at the end of each month. So if it is that type, it's 357. So I like this better. If you want to use the formula, you may. If you like handwritten stuff. Okay. This was just a $50,000 lid with a $10,000 residual value. Interest rate this time is 4.8%. Annual percentage rate, right? What would the monthly lease payment be for a 5-year lease in a perfect capital market? What's the first thing we need to do? Well, we need to copy some itself. We need the present value, right?
Yes.
So what do we got? 50, right?
Yes.
And then 10. 50,000. And then 10,000 residual, right? So I got to change this rate to 0.48, right? And then it's 5 years, so 60, right?
It's 60.
42. And then we'll take this one and do the payment function again. I think if I just do this, that should be okay. We're going to do 60, right? We're going to do minus 42, 29, spot 95, do 0. Make sure you put the 1 for, yeah. So this payment is $784. Hey, look at that. Loan. Present value of the loan payments should equal the purchase price in theory. Okay. With a lease, only the cost of the economic depreciation of the asset during the term of the lease is financed. So now if I'm borrowing this, how is that going to change?
You have higher.
Let's see. Over here so you can compare, right? This would be purchase. We don't have to do any of this, do we? Right? So, we're going to say 20,000. What's my rate first? It's at 6%, right? .06 divided by 12, it was 48, right, for the first one. And it's going to be minus 20,000. 0, the future value, 1. The payments are now, which is this one. Or 69.70. Let's change that to 0. Usually when you purchase something, usually payments aren't at first, right? So they're assuming that your payments are at the end of the month. If you were assuming your payments are at the beginning of the month, you would have put a 1 in that last column, right? Here, I just put a 0 for ordinary annuity. Big difference?
And that's interest.
$112 a month for a small company? Probably, right? For a large company? Maybe not. Okay. So that was a calculation of the purchase. The only difference is on that one, you take the present value in the equation is going to be whatever the purchase price is. And unless otherwise directed, we assume it's an ordinary annuity which it pays at the end of the month. So we did the 50,000, the same thing over here, 4.8. And 50,000, the difference here was 4.8, right? And it was 60 months, right? 5 years. $12, 60 months, 50,000, 0, 0. 938. What, $150 more? $160, $151 more? So, well, how does that figure into our other calculations? Well, think about if you're doing a net present value calculation, right? We want to take the present value of those lease payments, well, 50,000 there, 20,000 there. So that's going to have an influence on how we do if we do the project or not. Sometimes leasing a machine makes more sense than buying a machine. And sometimes buying a machine, if it has a hell of a resource or a hell of a potential resources. Fair market lease. In a perfect capital market, what does that sound like? It sounds like a theory qualification, right? Mm-hmm. So you could get the option to purchase the asset at its fair market value. At the end of the lease, where is the lessor going to offer you to purchase that car at? What price? Remember, we said the goal is to be around where? The market value has to be worth more than the residual value. He's going to try to get you to purchase it for more than the residual value, isn't he? Because then he makes money on the sale too, right? Unless he really wants to get rid of the car and really doesn't want his inventory, then he might offer you maybe a little deal, but he's probably going to want you to pay more than residual value. Why? Then he makes another couple $100 possibly, right? On selling the car. Dollar on lease. $1 for a nominal cost of $1 transfers the asset. That sounds kind of shady, right? That means that you've paid most of what that machine is worth in the lease, right? And with all your guys' accounting backgrounds, we know that there's two different types, right? Operating lease and the what?
Capital.
Mm-hmm. Capital means you own it. What is it, 75%, 80% of the market, fair market value, whatever it is? Something in that range, I think. If your payments come up to that much amount, then you have to put it on your balance sheet. If it's any less than that, then you can do an operating lease. Before that rule was made, guess what? All leases were operating leases. Fixed price, option to purchase asset at the end of the fixed price.
What was the one with the $1 option? Can you repeat that again, Mr. That one, the one out lease, $1.
That more than likely means you're paying the whole amount of the machine in the lease price. If they're gonna give it to you for $1, right? That'll have to be in the contract ahead of time.
Yeah, the contract that we had, the one that kind of got me thinking was like a lease for 90 years
Okay?
with the option of buying it for $1 after 90. And then I was doing the
Just
math, I'm like,
keep
shit, we're
it,
gonna
take
pay
it
it
away
4
with
times.
it. I don't want to bother with it anymore. Fixed price, fair market cap lease. Okay. Compute the lease payments, forklift, the one we did, as a fair market value lease, $1 out lease, a fixed price that allows the lessee to buy the end asset at, so $4,000. Okay. First one, fair market's going to be what? What number does that look like? Back to our Excel sheet here. What's the difference? Take the purchase repayments and do what with it? Right? Okay. So this is what the call is a fair market value lease, right?
But I think they had 47 periods, not 48 in the equation,
Mm-hmm.
and we have 48.
Right? With the first payment being done right now, as soon as we sign the contract. Yep. So when we put that one,
So if we put like 47 and 0, it should give us the same result?
0, it means at the end
zero would assume at the end of the month.
of the month. 1 at the beginning.
One assumes that all the payments are made at the beginning of the month. So you really are not discounting that first payment. That payment is coming out when? Today, right? So you're not discounting that back. So if you don't, if you put 0 and 48 or 47. Okay, let's see. Because that assumes the first payment is made at the end of the month. So it's always, whenever you want the payment done now, annuity due is a 1 in the type column, okay? And now let's go back to 48 months here. Because you're discounting, theoretically for 48 months, but that first payment is now, so it's not really discounted, is it? Right? Okay. So we got that part. Next part is this is the this. So the 16,851.61 is what? That's the present value of, is that this number? Now, what's the difference between that and this? What are they doing differently?
thousand, that's
So they're taking what here? Not the residual value, they're taking what? Wait a second, what's the forklift, right? That's right. They're giving us the option to purchase at what?
1,000.
Nope,
Well, that's not it?
4,000.
Oh.
That's where the 4,000 is coming from. So, if we take this, that over here, that'll be what? Everything's the same except for this is going to be 4,000 instead of 6,000, right? Because that's how much they're letting me purchase it for. Okay. And then, what do we do with that? Well, we do a payment calculation, go into our formulas, go into the convention, go into PMT
Can't
payment.
you just do PMT on the equals PMT?
You can do that too. I just show it. Hmm? So what's my percentage? 0.6, right? By 12. 48 again, because we're going to use the 1 at the end. This time it's minus what? 16,851. 851. 6 1.
So that, because the one you're assuming is at the beginning of the month, right?
Mm-hmm. 393.79. Yep. So, this one was what? The $4,000 purchase option, right? First price is late, they do that example.